My name is Churn. I was born into the Churn clan, one of the 5 most prestigious families in South Korea. As the eldest son and direct heir, my name has long been etched into the family's destiny book, just waiting for me to grow up and take on the weight of it all. But hold on, don't mistake me for the arrogant type. I'm not some pompous heir who looks down on the world with smug pride. I don't enjoy flaunting power, nor do I care for the cutthroat games played by those who worship the so-called upper class. I stay quiet because I know exactly where I stand. I don't fight for what's already mine, because if it truly belongs to me, no one can take it. When I was little, I had a friend, well, more like a tale. Really, he was a bit younger than me, always crying, always clinging to me like a kite string that refused to let go. His name was Kim Mingu, the second son of the Kim clan. Another noble family on par with mine. Back then, we played together, ate together, even napped side by side. I still remember wiping his runny nose more times than I can count. But one day, I had to leave. Big Dad Hoshi and Little Dad Woozy sent me to study in France, to protect me from the watchful eyes of other powerful factions, and to shield me from the brewing battles for power. I left without saying goodbye, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew. It's that little boy heard I was leaving. He'd cry for days. Years passed, and that name almost faded from my memory. My life as a student abroad was filled with endless plans, strategic training, mental conditioning, and exhausting networking sessions. I barely had time to breathe, let alone reminisce about the past. Until one day, my phone rang. It was a call from Little Dad Woozy. No greetings, no small talk, just one short sentence. Come home. You're getting engaged to Kim Mingu. At that moment, I thought I misheard. Kim Mingu, a name I hadn't thought of in years, suddenly resurfaced as fate. Marry him? A political marriage? I frowned. The Churn and Kim clans, a solid alliance. Yes, but to marry for gain? I'm no puppet. Yet Little Dad only smiled and said, "This isn't just politics, it's also a debt of affection." I returned to Korea without much resistance. Partly because I was curious. I wanted to see what kind of person that clingy little boy had grown into. Was he still trustworthy? Did he still hold even a shadow of me in his heart? Or had he changed, forgotten everything? The moment I landed at Incheon Airport, the first person I saw was Youngkook, my twin brother. He grinned like a puppy and leapt into a stiff hug. "Hung, you're finally back? I thought you'd gone full French on us." I laughed. Still the same chatterbox. Behind him stood Big Dad Hoshi and Little Dad Woozy, their eyes gleaming with pride. "Let's go home. There's a lot we need to talk about." "Wonwoo," said Big Dad. In the car, they told me everything about Mingu, now studying at Sebong, a Korea's most prestigious university, where only the elite attend. About how he still remembered me, still said my name when drunk, still kept the handkerchief I once used to wipe his tears. I said nothing, but something inside me twinged. "You're not going to study at that school too, are you?" Youngkook teased, his eyes sparkling mischievously. I nodded. My academic record could win over any admissions board. I wanted to observe Mingu, to see if the man the Kim clan had staked an alliance on was someone I could trust. On my first day at Sebong, I wore a custom-tailored uniform, the collar subtly embroidered with a small J, the mark of the Churn clan. I walked in like a strange wind, turning heads without even trying. But I didn't care. I was looking for one person, and then I saw him. Mingu, tall, broad-shouldered, sharp-featured, his eyes cool and unreadable. No longer the boy trailing after me, but a man in full. And yet, like a slap to every preconception I had, when his eyes met mine, they instantly lit up. "Wonwoo Hung," he said, rushing over and pulling me into his arms. "You're back? I thought I'd never see you again." I froze for a second. This hug, it was too warm. Mingu smiled like a child, then whined in that familiar tone of his. "You didn't even tell me you were coming." I waited forever. "You know," I squinted at him. "You're not a kid anymore. But for you, I'll always be your baby. And what if I don't want that? How could you not?" I chuckled, raising my hand to ruffle this oversized puppy's hair. He hadn't changed, still the same clingy, tail-wagging energy. Mingu, this guy had grown so much taller than me. His presence powerful, his sharp features striking. Yet that way he latched onto me like he was afraid I'd vanish at any moment. It hadn't changed at all. But then, my eyes caught something strange. A girl staring straight at me through the sea of curious, admiring gazes aimed at me and Mingu. I tilted my head slightly, glancing to the left, toward the edge of the campus courtyard, where an old ginkgo tree cast long shadows across pale stone tiles. A girl stood there, her eyes shimmering like she was on the verge of tears, yet carrying something cold, almost sinister. Her pink lips curled slightly, like a smile that failed to become one. Her school uniform was subtly altered to hug her curves, delicate enough to look tasteful, but clearly deliberate, and in her hands, she held a lunchbox. Yeah, I noticed that detail. A girl like her doesn't carry things around just for show. I let out a quiet breath, turned back to Mingu, and said with a faint smirk, "Puppy, someone over there's looking at me like she wants to eat me alive." He immediately looked in the direction I nodded toward, then instinctively tightened his arms around my waist, frowning like someone just touched his most sacred possession. "Don't look at anyone else. I'm jealous." I was a bit taken aback, then smiled. "It's not what you think. It's just that girl looks at me like she holds a grudge." Mingu didn't bother hiding his irritation. "That's Muni, daughter of the dean of the law department. She's tried to stick to me at a few family events, but I always ignored her. Don't know why she clings like glue." I nodded, my gaze drifting slightly back in her direction. She seemed to notice me looking and flashed a smile, a challenging, mocking kind of smile. Ah, just as I thought. I've seen her type more times than I can count, at noble banquets, behind whispered power plays, or in the constant gossip echoing through Sabanga's marble halls. All lipstick and airs, hollow on the inside. She didn't leave much of an impression, but the way she looked at me like I was her property? Now that was pushing it. Mingu kept his arm around my waist, pulling me closer. "Don't worry about her. I'll ask Chang Han to have her transferred to another department, if needed, as Coops can get involved through the school board." I let out a laugh. "You're ready to go to war over a single glance? I'm afraid she might hurt you when I'm not around," Mingu said, those puppy eyes staring straight into me. My heart thudded against my ribs. He wasn't the boy who used to cry behind me anymore, nor the flustered teen who'd blush whenever I teased him. That gaze, those words, the warmth in his touch, everything now belonged to a man who knew exactly what he wanted, what he needed, and was ready to protect it at all costs. I looked at him without responding, only gave a slight nod, then let my gaze drift back toward Mumi. She was gone, but the lunchbox that had once been in her hands now lay in the trash bin. I suppose that was her version of a heartfelt gesture for Mingu. I watched her walk away, and a strange sense of amusement bubbled in my chest. I was honestly looking forward to seeing what lengths she'd go to in order to steal Mingu from me. I turned back to him, half teasing, half serious. "You don't need to worry. I never let anyone take what's mine that easily." Mingu looked at me and smiled, that mix of fake innocence and genuine affection. "Then, I'm curious what you'd do to someone who managed to steal your person." I glanced up at him, went quiet for a few seconds, then leaned in close to his ear and whispered in a low voice. "I'd rip out every one of their fingernails, make them knock each of their own teeth onto the floor, and the one who let themselves be taken, I'd cut them out of my life forever." Mingu burst into laughter, hugging me tighter like he'd just heard the sweetest love confession in the world. "Well, for us, sweetness doesn't have to come wrapped in roses or chocolates. Sometimes, it's the shared madness in our instincts that keeps our hearts warm." I linked arms with Mingu as we walked off together. The scene looked almost perfect, didn't it? But I knew sooner or later, this picture would get a third person wedged into it, because I knew Muni wasn't the type to give up on Mingu so easily. And I wasn't the kind to sit quietly and let someone trespass into my territory. Because what's mine, no one is allowed to touch. Ends that day, Mingu never left my side. He took me out to eat, brought me to the childhood spots we used to visit, and even remembered things I liked as a kid. details I've long forgotten myself. Every time I saw this giant puppy hunched over, carefully cooking noodles for me, feeding me with that same devoted look, my heart warmed. I couldn't help but smile at the thought of how amusing Muni's expression would be if she saw the way Mingu treated me now. And then, after a whole week of peaceful cohabitation with Mingu, the moment I'd been quietly waiting for finally arrived. It was during the break after the first class of the week. I had just stepped out of the room when I saw Muni waiting in the hallway. Her hair was softly curled, her face done up with meticulous makeup, a notebook in hand, but it was obvious she had no intention of studying. The moment she spotted me, she flashed that smile, that particular kind of smile I knew never meant anything good. Wanwoo, her voice was sweet, like honey, but to my ears it sounded like poison wrapped in silk. Got a sec? I need a favor. I frowned. Sorry, my time's a bit too precious to waste helping someone like you. It's just, I didn't understand yesterday's math lesson. You're smart, right? Can you teach me? She said, while clinging to my arm like we were best friends. A few distant gazes had already turned our way, and among them, one burned like fire. Muni, let go. Don't pull this crap in public. I said calmly but firmly, trying to walk away, but she yanked me into the nearby library room and locked the door behind us. I stared at her, confused, not even having time to react before she started stripping off her uniform right in front of me. I immediately covered my eyes, and the next thing I heard was her letting out a wild, theatrical scream. That's when I knew exactly what she was trying to pull. Damn it! She went full crazy. As I turned away, eyes tightly shut, she clung to my arm, pressing herself against me, her body rubbed against mine, sending a jolt through me that made my knees weak. I shouted, Ming Yu, and right then, the door burst open, and a large figure wrapped its arms around me. That soft but worried voice spoke. Did she hurt you? Eyes still shut tight. I buried my face into that firm chest, pretending to be scared. She touched me in that state. I mumbled. Mingyu pulled me closer, holding me like he was shielding me from the whole world. I heard the shuffle of fabric behind me, probably Muni covering herself up. Finally feeling shame. Then Mingyu spoke, his voice low and sharp. You really thought pulling this cheap stunt would get my attention? How pathetic. After this, I doubt you'll even have the right to stay in this school, Muni screamed. No, it's not like that. You misunderstood. It was Wanwoo. He tried to harass me. He's not as innocent as you think. I nearly burst out laughing inside. God, this was almost too funny. It was all I could do not to go insane from amusement. But no, it wasn't my cue yet. Let's see how Mingyu responds. And then I heard him chuckle, his arms still tightly wrapped around me as he said, You really think you're worthy enough for him to touch? She kept screaming, forcing out a few tears as if hoping someone in the crowd would feel sorry for her. But sadly for her, Mingyu had already chosen a side, and once Mingyu stood beside someone, who'd dare stand against him? Mingyu, please, you have to believe me. It was him. He wanted to ruin my reputation. And there it was, the perfect moment for me to step into the spotlight. I forced out a few shaky sobs, tears slipping down just on cue as I trembled in Mingyu's arms. I didn't do anything. She's lying. She even grabbed my wrist. It hurts so much. Mingyu, I held up my reddened wrist for him to see. Well, technically, she did grab me, but the scratch marks? That was my own handiwork. A few extra digs while no one was watching. My future husband didn't disappoint. Mingyu's eyes flared with rage, his voice sharp and furious. You dare? Someone call security. I knew exactly what he was about to do. But I stopped him, because letting her off too easily? That'd make the next few days at school way too boring for me. I slipped out of Mingyu's embrace, still playing the part of the just cried, fragile noble boy, eyes slightly red. He looked at me with deep concern. Even now, you're still stopping me? He asked, voice aching. I gave him a small smile, my voice trembling as I said, I'm okay. Then I turned to face Muni again. I stepped closer, just enough so she could see my expression clearly. But the others in the hallway couldn't. She glared at me, hatred burning in her eyes. But all I gave her was a calm, victorious smile. I let the smirk fade, returned to my pitiful look, and reached out a hand as if to help her up. She smacked it away and screamed again. TCH, I was really losing my patience. Same trick, over and over. If I weren't currently playing the role of a kind, gentle air, I'd have sent her straight to the heavens the moment she dragged me into that room. I pulled my hand back and walked over to Mingu, my face full of feigned pain as I leaned against him and said with a pout, Mingu, I didn't do anything. I know, he replied right after saying that. Mingu threw a phone to the ground. Its screen lit up, playing a video recorded secretly from above the bookshelf in the library. Capturing every second of what really happened, it clearly recorded my voice resisting. Clearly showed Muni locking the door herself, stripping off her uniform on her own. And me, so panicked I had to scream. Security cameras, did you think they were just for decoration? Muni froze, her eyes wide like she couldn't believe it, stammering, wasn't it broken? So that's why you thought you could frame him? Pathetic. You should be thankful to him. Because it's thanks to him I'm letting you off this time, and you still get to stay at this school. With that, Mingu grabbed my hand and pulled me away. Just as we stepped outside, I caught the teasing stares from Youngkook and the guy standing next to him, Kim Taehyung. I quickly looked away to avoid their punch-worthy grins. Mingu kept pulling me along the hallway without once looking back. I let him hold my hand like that, my heart fluttering with a strange, floating feeling, as if I'd just been officially claimed by Mingu in front of the entire school. When we reached the back wing near the sports field, Mingu finally stopped, let out a long breath and turned to me. Are you really okay? I shook my head, then nodded, then shook again. Mingu laughed, ruffling my hair like I was a puppy. So which is it? Yes or no? I'm okay, but not completely. You know I'm not good with filthy situations like that. Then let me be the one who cleans everything up for you, he said, his voice firm. I looked at him and chuckled softly. You sound like the mafia or something. As long as you want me to, I'll play any role, he replied. I laughed louder this time. Maybe starting today, I'd have to get used to having a big puppy tailing me everywhere I go. After Mingu brought me home, Youngkook was lounging on the couch with his phone when he looked up and said, Only a few years studying in France and your acting skills have leveled up, huh? I just smiled. You flatter me. I'm a Churn. That title isn't just for show. Youngkook suddenly sprang forward, eyes sparkling with excitement. Teach me some of those tricks. I wanna learn. I looked at him teasingly. What's wrong? Afraid someone's gonna steal Taehyung away? His face turned bright red like a tomato, and he punched me before running off. Watching his tiny figure dash away, I could only sigh. My little brother's clearly fallen in love. After a while, I was summoned to my parents' room to talk about the engagement party. From that day on, Muni completely disappeared from my sight. No more stalking in the hallways. No more judgmental stares or that fake sweet expression of hers. Maybe after that incident, she'd finally decided to retreat? But if that's true, then how boring. No fun at all. What I didn't expect was that she hadn't given up. Instead, she was just stepping back to prepare something bigger. At a school-organized party meant for students to socialize, where dim lights cast dancing shadows across the ballroom, where the thumping bass mixed with laughter and clinking glasses echoed in the air. I lost track of how many drinks I had. I only remembered the strange bitterness on my tongue. Definitely not any wine I'd tasted before. My tolerance isn't terrible, but 5 glasses shouldn't have been enough to get me dizzy. Something felt off. I stood up, trying to find Mingu, scanning the room, but he was nowhere to be found. So I left the party early, but just as I reached the door, a rough hand grabbed me and yanked me into a dark corner, out of the lights. Deep in the shadows, where music drowned out every sound. A perfect spot, huh? As soon as I was dragged in, a familiar voice spoke up. So, is he your type or not? Of course, I knew someone like her wouldn't give up that easily. The man responded with obvious satisfaction. Of course, someone this gorgeous. I've never had the pleasure before. Then take your time. Don't worry, no one will bother you here. Enjoy yourself. I scoffed coldly, then kicked the bastard as he moved toward me. Even in the dim light, I could clearly see the twisted mix of emotions on her face. It was honestly laughable. I walked up to the man and drove my foot straight into his precious parts. Hard enough that he let out a scream and collapsed. I doubt he'll be standing again anytime soon. One down, now it's time to take out the trash completely. I slowly approached her, and before she could say anything, I knocked her out with a single blow and called my cousin Chong Han. Pong, I've got a new present for you. After hearing his reply, I smiled and hung up. Maybe I called at the wrong time, hopefully. As Scoops won't hold it against me later. I let out a deep sigh, exhausted, and dragged myself to the door, using the last bit of clarity in me to make it home safely. The moment I opened the door, that familiar scent hit me and I immediately threw myself into his arms, whispering, "Mingyu, I can't take it anymore." He didn't say a word, just silently led me away from the chaos of that noisy party. The next morning, I didn't even need to ask what had happened. The way my waist was on strike was already answer enough. Looking at that annoyingly handsome face sleeping soundly beside me just made my blood boil. And I instantly kicked him off the bed. Mingyu curled up on the floor, groaning. That was harsh. Harsh? Not as harsh as what you did to me last night. I'm sorry. You just looked so irresistible. I couldn't help myself. I looked at this man and wanted to punch him a few more times, but my sore body wouldn't allow it. So, I spent the whole day unable to walk, being carried around the house like a princess. I hate it. I hate this stupidly handsome man. After that incident, both my family and the Kim family took action, not just punishing one person, but erasing the entire family behind Muni. In our world, one wrong move and your entire bloodline pays the price. The engagement ceremony was held under the soft glow of golden lights. I stood beside Mingyu, hand in hand. He leaned in and whispered, "Finally, you're mine." I turned to him with a rare smile. "It's just an engagement. Nothing's official yet." He gave me those sad puppy eyes again. God, why do hot guys always have that look? I'm weak for it. I reached up to pat his head and smiled. "Yeah, I'm yours. So if you're mine, I can do whatever I want. Right? Of course not. Don't think I don't know what's going on in that pretty little head of yours." He kissed me and laughed like an idiot. I swear, I'm powerless against this man. Down below, Chong Han and Scoops raised their glasses. Looking perfectly satisfied, Taehyun clung to Jungkook's hand like he'd never let go. And both my father and Mingyu's nodded with content, like they'd just won the chess match of the century. Uncle Namjoon and Uncle Jin came over. Well, I guess I should start calling them my in-laws now. The engagement party finally wrapped up after a long day. And that handsome devil Kim Mingu pinned me down once again. Someone please come rescue me from this man.